Good morning. Today is July 2nd, 2025. This is Phoenix, and we will be watching the live update in regards to this special hearing in the state versus Brian Kohberger, the state of Idaho. Hey, Marissa. Thanks for joining the live. So we have about maybe 17 minutes until they start the stream. And we'll just keep an eye out and listen to what they have to say. I am very interesting to find out exactly what this plea is going to entail. And if he just may stand up there and plead not guilty. This would be wild in this case. Is Brian Kohberger a Fed? Is he an informant? We had the conversation with one of his friends last week. Hey, Joe, nice to see you. And it was pretty interesting when we asked Will if, Bertie said, "Hey, Will, do you think that Brian is a Fed?" And Will immediately said no. And it's interesting when I asked him, "Do you think if Brian is a confidential informant?" And he had a long pause. And in the beginning of that interview, he said that Brian was always along for the ride. He saw him do any drugs. So it was really interesting. So welcome in, join this stream, share it if you will. I am also live on TikTok in about 5 minutes, so we can get a live reaction of what is about to happen in this courtroom in the state of Idaho with AKA King Hitler. Hitler, sorry. So we really want to make this really easy for you guys to watch. There are a lot of people streaming. I'm going to turn my mic all the way up. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it. And people keep bringing up the location of the weapon. If it's being forced to take a plea, could a weapon be planted somewhere? Anything could have been planted in this case. I think someone found out either he was an informant or someone at that house was an informant working with Brian, allegedly, in my humble opinion, and they took care of business. And, I don't know if many of you have been watching what's going along the TikTok streets this morning. I haven't seen it so much here on the YouTube streets. But there are so many videos coming out of 4 frat boys that may or may not be involved. And one of them happens to be the alleged Scott Green's son. And he is the president of the University at the U of Idaho. And it's interesting because when they brought Green in, he comes from a financial background. He doesn't come from a area of running institutions like a college. And they hired him in, paid him $400,000+ to run the U of I. Then you had the University of Phoenix that wanted to buy him out. There is a lot of similarities and Arizona and Idaho being brought up across the board everywhere. So if you watch these little tidbits of information and watch the DEA and the OCDTEF and a couple of other agencies, you'll see something big happened, and they moved a whole operation from Idaho to Arizona, and I had been covering that for a little while. So if you notice, there is a lot of stuff going on in this case that does not make sense to the average American working hard to feed their family at the tail end of COVID all the way up until 2024, when all these people from Idaho were actually sentenced and confidential informants testified in those cases. And here we have, if this case does go to trial, you will eventually not know confidential informants, but they will testify. And I think that this is what they are trying to avoid, especially with all the players at hand. So we've still got about 15 minutes until the court goes live. It's 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time in Idaho. And I'm seeing your comments fly in, and I'm going to put them on screen so we can all see them. And that's pretty interesting. I'm as nervous as a hoe in church. Nerves been on 100 all morning. Then you have one of this one is really good. The state is so corrupt. No one is doing a effing thing. I think that's the plan. This is all AT plan. She knows he's innocent and she's buying time. Could be. There could be much, much more behind it. I told Bertie in email they were all linked. Absolutely, they are all linked. They are all part of the same kangaroo court. Follow the rich white man, Rush Hour 2. You got it, Zach. We've been following that for a little while. All fake news, Michelle. I believe it is possibly this is just one of those federal psyops so that it makes the people think. It makes people entertain. Is this social media entertainment or is this actually what's happening among these individuals? Now, I did watch a clip last night with Stacey Chapin, and she happens to mention a simple, uh, you know, I want to say this in the positive light. She mentions a location in her statement. I believe it was before the memorial service. And what was really interesting is she mentions the area where the shooter just the other night from Idaho is actually from. And it's interesting, very interesting. Look, I am retired. Don't try to pull my leg. Yeah, we got enough time, us retired folks. We are watching the news. We are more engaged. We are watching politics. She needed the DP off the table to expose them all. She knows too much. And this is her backyard. She knows way too much. Just tell my boss I can't attend her meeting in 14. Well, if you got headphones, jump on in. I do not know if Bertie's live. Let me check and see if he's live, because if he's live, I'll see if he wants me to jump on live reaction. That would be a kicker if we can get both of us on at the same time, because I thought he was at work. I told him last night, we need to retire you, dude. And let's just see what he's got. Bertie is he live? No, he's not live right now. So yeah, he's probably at work. So invite your friends, invite all. I'm going to share my screen in a moment and we will go live and on the streets of TikTok and share with them this too, because there are a lot of people who cannot access, but they do and they are able to access their apps at work. So it's weird. You can't get on the network, but you can surely access your apps, right? So I've had my family snatched up by our justice system. I am so sorry, Marissa. I know quite a few women, quite a few men that have had that. And unfortunately, it does happen. I've seen innocent people be dragged through the mud and plead out their cases in CPS, in regular criminal court, and I've seen a lot of stuff in civil courts. So we need the people to write letters and have a peaceful gathering. We possibly could. We know what's up. We know that he's going to turn around and have something else. Hey, Doug Wilson, what's up? We know that he may just turn around and they file something. And my first pin comment, Jackster. All right. Welcome to the live. Welcome to the live. I'm going to put my screen on stage and we are going to watch this. Hopefully you all can see this. I'm going to make this screen a little bit bigger. See if this layout works better. And hopefully you'll be able to see that. It says we are just waiting. And yep, I'd have to agree. CPS is awful. I know many of you have seen what happened in my case. My ex-husband had custody for summer visitation. He never returned him, disappeared for many months. And then instead of sending him home with me, he had CPS come and they removed my son in a different state, would not return him to me until 8 months later. I fought tooth and nail with a fabulous ex-JAG attorney, an ex-military attorney that obviously is an attorney in Idaho, in Canyon and Ada County. And they escorted my son back to me. They flew him back to me, and the rest is history. So it does happen. And it says, I'm trying to get my mom home after 24 years. I don't know the story, Marissa. I don't know the whole story, but I'll dig into it and see if we can help in any way. So I'm going to see if you guys, can you see that on the screen? I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger in a full screen layout and see if you can drop a 1 if you can see that. Hopefully you can see that. Hopefully I won't get into any big trouble by showing this, but I do know I need to make my screen a little bigger. So there are over 4,300 people waiting to get in to see this live. And if you know anything about this case, nothing has been shared. It's mostly all, I want to say, crap, sealed, no need to know. It's wild. It is so wild. That's not big enough. Let's do this. I'm wondering if I can get this over more. I don't think I can. But as soon as this pops up, we will watch this. So I want to ask everyone that's here, thank you for joining today. What bothers you the most in this Brian Kohberger case? What bothers you the most? I'll share a few things that I have, and then maybe we'll review some of the comments. This is something that has really bothered me. And it says that court will resume shortly. That means they're getting ready to go live in about 7 minutes. What bothers you the most about this case? All the secrecy, absolutely. I would agree. Why does Kohberger's dad flight records? All the secrecy. Good morning, everyone joining in. Good morning. Everything bothers you about this case. I'd have to agree. Everything, Marissa. Absolutely everything. 40 Life Candles, great name. All the sealed documents, absolutely. Steve G waiting outside for BK's family to arrive. Now, I did not know that BK's family was going to arrive. That's very interesting. I've not checked any of the local wanted or sheriff's lists this morning to see if anybody was in custody of the 4 individuals that I believe are responsible for this. And Tan says dismissing others perps basically this whole time. And you know, the rumors and the TikTok streets are going wild right now with the 4 individuals that we have assumed have been responsible or took part in this allegedly. And I would have to agree, the secrecy, that nobody takes a plea deal guilty or not. Well, it's strategy. It's legal strategy to come back and say, wait, I did it under duress, or we can reverse this. Now, I watched an interesting movie a little while ago. Has anyone seen Trial by Fire? An innocent man is led to the death penalty chair under Governor Perry in Texas. Factual, true story. This guy was accused of setting a fire and killing his 3 small children, and comes to find out The investigators, and we talked about this last night on the live, these investigators have tunnel vision, or they have a separate agenda. And they put an innocent man to death. There was a Dr. Hurst that basically did a full investigation, third party look at the investigation, and came up to determine that the fire was actually set by a simple heater, and the husband was not guilty, and they sentenced an innocent man. So I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. It's Trial by Fire. It's a real story. Yeah, Renee, it's a good movie. I'm from Texas. It is a good story, but also a sad story. And they give the statistics just like Anne did in her statement, her rebuttal for to take the death penalty off the table in this case. And they did not. The state didn't budge, even if he's possibly innocent. And here we have him plead today, whatever he's going to plead. I don't know what's going to happen in court. All this is based under assumption from the news running rampant that he is going to change his plea. I did not see Judge Hippler in any order state that Brian Kohberger is going to change his plea. But if he stands up and he says, I am not guilty, I will not be shocked. But many of these, you know, YouTubers, YTers, news agencies, they will be shocked if he stands up and says not guilty. So, yeah, look at Waco. Waco is, yeah, that's another one. Harsh YouTuber, he's good. The Harsh Reality says Brian could still face death penalty even with a plea deal. I don't know how that's possible. Legal strategy wise, we had a attorney that was sharing us some information in regards to defense. Don't know how true that is, Mary Marilyn, but we will find out today. And I'm sure this case is not over. We will just not be hearing any of the evidence behind this case. We will see different things unless he is ever granted a new trial under a judge that is non-biased. Because, I don't know if you've been following the actual, um, hearings with Judge Hippler. But in the beginning, it was like, nope, tunnel vision. And then after the alternative perpetrators with the evidence, Judge Hippler says there was not enough evidence. So this is really interesting to be able to watch Ann Taylor in motion today. I'm going to start the live and I'm going to be quiet so that we all can hear. As soon as they start playing, hopefully you guys can all hear this. I've got the mic right next to my speakers and hopefully we'll be able to hear it. If we have any problems hearing this, let me know right away. Tearing in the house still documents the lies, questioning everyone. Yeah, not questioning everyone, not investing friends. There's no clear story. Between all these people involved, there is no clear story. None. He can withdraw his plea. Absolutely. Especially if it's under duress. Law enforcement should have called BK in questioning before he went to Pennsylvania. Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right. Renee says, let's go. It is 9:58 according to my time. Can you all see the court will resume shortly screen? I want to make sure you all can see that. Just type a yes. Hey, Mary, welcome to the live. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of the chat so everyone can see when it streams. And I wish I could make the screen bigger. All right. Hopefully that's a little bigger for you guys. See if we can get this screen. All right, I extended that screen. I've got two monitors up, so I'm nervous, and Lana and Truth and Transparency seems to be losing it about all this. Well, you know what? It's strategy. You have to think legal strategy in these cases. You can't lead with emotion. Lawyers disregard emotion and they're going right for the law. So you have to understand how court operates. I've been in trials. I've been personal experience in civil court, criminal court. And I'll tell you, it's all about strategy. Now, I don't know if many of you know, but I did get Idaho to drop false charges against me, and they did a deal and seal. I dealt and they sealed. They removed it from the repository, sealed the records because this individual had been known multiple times to file false information against others. And thank God I had the truth and the documents and the proof on my side. So you have to remember court is a strategy. I look at it like poker, not chess. A lot of people look at it and say it's chess. No, it's poker. Whatever cards that you hold, your opponent does not know. And it's your job to win at all costs. Now, while we're waiting for this to stream, I did watch a case yesterday that I'm making a video on the YT, and I'll throw it on the TT. And it was a case in trigger warning, where a woman had been choked. And the defense strategy was to show that this woman was choked by this man's penis. And his defense attorneys got up and wanted to show the jury this man's penis so that they would understand why this woman choked. And I was dumbfounded when I was listening to this case. However, that defense attorney got an acquittal for his client, you guys, for his client. Always document everything. Leave a paper trail, Marissa. Document, email yourself. When something happens, immediately send an email to yourself. Print it out. Keep a book. Keep a ledger. Keep a log. Keep a journal. Whatever you do, keep documentation. Hey, LG12. So I am going to go live real quick on the TikTok. And we are going to listen in and see what happens. It just says court will resume shortly. Just want to make sure live. All right, I've got 10:03 and we are watching the live. Waiting for it to update. I'm sure there's thousands of people in this courtroom hearing. All right, how's that, guys? Can you see that? It has not started yet. We are listening in. If you want to go ahead and I'm going to mute this mic real quick. Hold on. So like I said, this doesn't mean this case is over. It just means that they're not going to trial. There may be more happening at a later date where he actually may go to trial based on the terms of what they agree this morning. So thanks for tuning in live on TikTok. Thanks for being here live on YouTube. I see both of you. Now remember, on TikTok, I can't show you. You're just going to hear the live audio. On YouTube, you will be able to see the court. You're able to hear what they say. And we are just waiting. Just want to make sure that my volume is up all the way. I can stream from the Ada County, Kimberly, and I'm on their website right now. And nothing is happening yet. I'm sure they're getting prepared for court. It says court will resume shortly. And I'm hoping for others to be arrested. You know, it's wild on the streets of TikTok this morning, folks, because there are videos of 4 individuals, perpetrators, that have been going around virally. A lot of the creators that thought that these were the actual perpetrators are now sharing their faces everywhere, which was not being done before. So I hope they don't end up making it a closed court viewing like they did before. I hope they don't either, Michelle. And I am reading the TikTok comments along with the YT comments. I hope they don't. It says right now, court will resume shortly. And there is approximately 11,000 people now watching this stream on the TikTok. So it just says court will resume shortly. The sheriff sealed order is why I think that. Now, I did comment the other day in the court repository, 627. There was a sealed sheriff's return. And if you don't know what that is, that could possibly be a warrant for an arrest. It could also possibly be a summons to appear in court. It could also mean that obviously the judge sealed it for privacy. So there is some reference to, could this possibly be something that no one is talking about? So we'll find out in a second. I don't want to assume that he is changing his plea. That's why I put a question mark. Is this a PR stunt, or is he going to plead? Now, remember, in the original first hearing he showed up, he did not speak. He did not plead. The judge pleaded for him. And from what I understand from our attorney, our defense attorney that's a regular on our show and comes in and helps us understand things, the blonde, Southern blonde, oh my gosh, the Southern blonde lawyer, she basically said that they could come in and he can enter a plea of not guilty. So I don't know. I know you can't see the comments. I'm reading them. I feel like maybe something else may happen too, Beck. Auntie, I don't know if Ann Taylor pleaded for him. I never heard, I didn't see when they moved the case from Latah County to Ada County. I've heard his voice before. I definitely have heard his voice before. In one court hearing, he did speak. And I have that video. I've not made a TikTok of it, but he has spoken. He also spoke in 2 of the videos on the cop cams when they pleaded over. The judge originally did plead for him, Lisa. You are absolutely correct. Hey, Renee, I need a drink, and I don't even drink. Devil's advocate is in the courthouse. I thought he would definitely arrive over there. He's only about 4 or 5 hours away. I got my vodka and lemonade beside me, Diana. I need a drink and I don't drink. Definitely. All right. So let's see. I'm not taking any guests this morning on the Tickety Talk. I'm over here on YouTube watching this, and we are letting you listen in. I had to play the court video and him speaking on TikTok. Yeah, I will. I'll play the video. We've heard his voice before. We've heard him speak before. He seems to be like very professional. Okay, we're still waiting. There is no update. Court has not began. Maybe they're just all getting seated and taking their places and bringing him in the courtroom. Ethan's family had a police escort into court. I heard that. And I've seen Now, I've seen Ethan's family before, and I've seen her speak. It looks like she does, at some of the events that she's talked at, she does have some type of escort, if you guys have noticed this in videos. It looks like her family has some type of security, which I thought that was odd. Is it confirmed his family will be there? I'm not sure over on the TikTok and the YouTube, but I did hear that they were waiting for his family to arrive. I sent a message this morning. I don't know if you've seen it, but I literally said that I'm going to get my afternoon cocktail and wear all black. I feel like I'm in mourning, LOL. I didn't see you live over here. Okay, Beck, I'm live on the TikTok and I'm live here. We are waiting for this stream to begin. It's already 10 after the hour. Don't know what's going on. DA in second row. BK will be on to his right. Okay, got it. We're getting all the info. I heard since last night his family is going to be there. Yeah, I heard the same thing, that they were going to arrive. Switched up to YT. Yep. Hey, Lisa. I love your last name. Yeah, absolutely. So we are just waiting, almost 11,000 people. It says court will resume shortly. I'm just refreshing the screen to make sure we didn't miss anything, and it still says court will resume shortly. It was supposed to start at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, and it is 10:11 after. So we are just waiting. I've got my iced coffee. Now I add a little bit of water. I do 1 scoop of chocolate protein, which is about 22 grams of protein. I kind of overfill. And then I brew my coffee strong. And I'm drinking black Folgers silk coffee in the Keurig. And then I put the rest of ice. I know you can't see it on the YT, but my TikTok channel can see me drinking my iced cold coffee, which is amazing. And I made me a piece of toast this morning, my homemade sourdough toast. So yeah, I drink out of glass. I try to stay away from plastic. But do I have any predictions as to what you think would happen in court today? I don't know. I'm shocked that this is all taking place. It's got to be a strategy move. He can always say under duress, I was forced because I was denied X, Y, and Z from a biased judge when I had enough evidence and the judge thought there wasn't enough evidence, allegedly. And, who knows what they're going to do? Maybe the state of Idaho will release him to a state of Pennsylvania prison, and then they have jurisdiction over him. So I don't know what's going to play out. We have no idea, guys. No idea. I'm just as dumbfounded. And when I did that video the other day, I was just as dumbfounded as many of you. After 12 minutes, it took me I heard about it 5 minutes after it happened. It took me a few minutes to gather my thoughts, marinate, and try to figure out what the strategy is. Hey, you guys. Hey on the TikTok. Hey on the YT. Well, that's what they get, late fights, etc., with every notice. Oh, yeah. Renee said BK is a grown man. He is a smart grown man, guys. If this is strategy, we've seen this in a couple of other big cases. It's all strategy to set him up for success, especially if, and I'm saying if he's innocent, he should not be in prison. If he isn't, then he should be free as well as you and I are out on the TikTok streets, the YouTube streets, going to the grocery store, having fun, living his life. However, if he is not, he should sit and rot in jail. That's what I've always said. But if there is evidence that proves... All right, it started. Now, I don't know if I can share this with you guys, but let me see. No, you can't see it. Shoot. We'll just listen in. Everyone's all dressed up. Lots of people in this courtroom, guys. Lots of light. They moved it to
All right,
another
this
room.
is CR 0124316665. Defendant is present in custody with counsel, Ms. Thompson, Ms. Jennings, and pardon me, Ms. Taylor, Ms. Massoff, and Ms. Barlow. The state's present with Mr. Thompson, Mr. Horowitz, Ms. Jennings, and Mr. Nye is here as well. Might miss anybody?
For those on TikTok,
He's
they've
Alan
got
here as
guards
well.
in the
Alan is here
back
as
of the
well. Very
courtroom,
well, thank you.
guys,
All right, we are
blocking the
here
doors.
today to entertain a change of plea. Before I start, I want to address some issues of concern and otherwise. First, I appreciate everybody in attendance today being on their best behavior. Please, no outbursts or demonstrations. Any such conduct will result in immediate removal and may result in an inability to attend further court proceedings in this case.
Further court proceedings.
I want
What?
to point out that there have been calls by some for the public to contact me and my office in an attempt to influence my decision-making in this case.
Steve G.
This has been extraordinarily disruptive for court staff.
Yep.
And the ability for them to get work done, not only in this case, but in other cases where defendants are entitled to have their cases processed, and frankly, as important, if not more so, for victims to have their cases processed in those cases.
15,000 people
It's
are
also
watching.
highly inappropriate. A court is not supposed to, and this court will never take into account public sentiment in making an opinion regarding its judicial decisions in cases.
Wow.
Courts should, and I always will make decisions based on where the facts and the law lead me, period. I have not read any of the numerous messages nor listened to any of the numerous voicemails that have been sent to me and my staff. Those have all been forwarded to security and, where appropriate, to law enforcement.
Good.
I ask that you not continue to mount such campaigns or to send me information like this, because, again, it is not appropriate and, frankly, not something I would take into account when deciding
it's not professional.
A matter in a case like this.
Look at Steve.
I also want people to understand some very basic concepts about the ideas of separation of powers, what the court's duties are, and what the duties and the rights of the executive, or in this case, the prosecuting attorney, is. The executive, the elected prosecutor, is the sole authority in deciding what charges to pursue, including whether as well as what penalties to ask for and what penalties to pursue, including the death penalty.
This is about Steve G, guys.
This court cannot require the prosecutor to seek the death penalty, nor would it be appropriate for this court to attempt to do that. This court, in considering a plea agreement, if it were to reject this plea agreement, cannot force the state to seek the death penalty.
Exactly.
My role and power in considering a plea agreement is extremely limited.
He's reading from a document.
My role is to ensure that the defendant's plea is given freely, voluntarily, and intelligently. If those things are met, I can only reject a plea, such as the one in this case, where I'm not being asked to agree to the sentence in advance. If I can only reject it, for example, if the defendant does not meet or admit to all of the elements of the crime.
Exactly, which I don't think he will.
That is, I can ensure what is called a factual basis to the plea. Finally, I want to offer my apologies to all the families, including the victims' families, the families of the defendant, for the short notice for today's hearing, and I'm sure what must have been the hurried efforts to get here. I, like most everyone else, learned of this plea agreement Monday afternoon and had
Wow.
no inkling of it beforehand. Prior to that time, I was under the belief that this case was proceeding to trial, as had been
Yep.
indicated, and my staff and I were busy continuing to work on preparations to have potentially 10,000 citizens of Ada County come to jury duty starting in mid-July,
Wow.
with the questionnaire process in mid-July.
I planned on going to trial.
It was, once I learned of the defendant's decision to change his plea in this case, it was important that I take the plea as soon as possible because of the extraordinary administrative efforts that were otherwise attendant to the process of this, getting this trial potentially underway on time, and including the significant process of bringing, again, potentially up to 10,000 jurors to come in and fill out juror questionnaires prior to the beginning of the voir dire process. And so it was important that we, if we're going to go down this road, do so expeditiously so that we can avoid those costs and expenses associated with that. Otherwise, if it was not going to result in a plea, or if for some reason the plea were to fall through today, that we could continue diligently towards trial at the time
Woo!
specified.
Steve G is over
And
there
so
talking to Christy, and
that
the
obviously
deputy is looking
required
right at both
that
of
we
them,
act
saying,
quickly. And
wow.
so some
Steve G
folks
does
may have
not
not
look happy,
had
you
the
guys.
amount of time that we would otherwise allow for them to travel here.
They put
And
Steve
so,
G in the corner.
again, I apologize for that.
BK's back and Taylor's
want
back is
to,
right to them for the guys on TikTok.
Make people aware that during the hearing, if you are to leave the courtroom for any reason, you will not be readmitted
Right.
During the hearing.
That's typical.
Also, when we finished the hearing this morning, I asked that the public and media wait in their seats until the victims' families and the defendants' families and others are escorted out of the
I don't
courtroom
see our friend
before you
Devil's
start to leave.
Advocate yet. I'm looking for him. He might be on the other side of the court.
Finally, I want to acknowledge the trial court administrator and her staff, the Ada County Sheriff, and the Ada County 4th District Marshal Service for the huge lift that they've accomplished in preparing for and orchestrating this hearing today.
Yeah, Emily, he's
as
in the
well as
front
to
row,
all the
all the
security
way
attendant
behind
today,
Ann Taylor and
that you see, and
behind
some of whom many of
Brian
whom you don't
Kohberger.
see, with less than 48 hours notice. And
They've
so I
put
appreciate the
this
hard
in a
work that
special
they've been
room
doing.
with windows.
Frankly, some of them while they were on some vacation prior to the trial starting and had to call that short. And so I appreciate very much their professionalism and dedication. All right. That said, let's move to the business of today. I understand the state and the defense have reached a plea agreement in this case. For the record, I have a written plea agreement which indicates in sum, the defendant will plead guilty to all 5 counts in the indictment: burglary, felony, and first-degree murder, 4 counts. The state and the defendant stipulate, that is, that the defense is not free to argue for a lesser sentence at sentencing, to the following. The defendant on the burglary charge will be sentenced to 10 years fixed, and that the defendant on counts 2 through 5, the 4 counts of first-degree homicide, on each count would receive a fixed life sentence, all 5 of those counts to run consecutive to one another. Defendant, as part of the plea agreement, waives his right to appeal, as well as his right to appeal the sentence and his right to seek leniency or reconsideration of the sentence under Idaho Criminal Rule 35. This is not a Rule 11 agreement, meaning the court is not bound by the plea agreement and could impose a different lawful sentence at sentencing The stipulated agreement between the parties is the maximum on each count. So theoretically, the only thing the court could do would be a lesser sentence at sentencing. But the defendant is not free to ask the court to do so under the plea agreement. Are there any other material terms of the plea agreement that the parties would like to make? Obviously, the plea agreement, the written plea agreement will speak
What's
for
going
itself
on in
and be part
court?
of the court record.
Not from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, very well. All right. Ms. Taylor, have you had sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights, defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Yes, Your Honor.
She's smiling.
And have you informed your client of the importance of providing the court truthful and accurate answers in taking this plea today?
I have.
Have you apprised your client of any and all offers and counter offers and answered his questions about those?
Yes,
Do you consent to the entry of the plea today?
I do.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, I need to ask you some questions this afternoon, or I guess it's this morning still. I do this to ensure that you so that I am assured that you understand the nature of the charges to which I understand you're going to plead guilty, as well as the possible consequences to you of your guilty pleas. I want to make sure your plea is given voluntarily, and I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit. If you attempt to plead guilty today, but for some reason I don't accept your plea, then it is possible that your statements today could be used against you later at trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And now, while you're standing, actually, why don't you take the oath from the clerk?
So they're having him swear in under oath for those on TikTok. Thanks for joining and bringing your presence here.
Yes.
All right, and Mr. Kohberg, just to make it easier, you don't need to stand when you speak to me. I appreciate the sign of respect, but for convenience, you can remain seated, all right? Before I start asking you questions today, have you consumed substantive questions? Let me ask you, have you consumed any alcohol, drug, or other intoxicating substance that would impair your ability to understand or exercise reasonable judgment?
No.
You feel like you are thinking clearly today?
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the possible penalties are for each of the crimes to which I understand you're going to offer a guilty plea today. They include, on count one, the burglary, a fine of up to $50,000 and a period of incarceration of up to 10 years in the state penitentiary. You may be required to pay restitution to any victims of the crime.
Boy,
Count
CG is
2, 3, 4, and 5 for first-degree murder. The consequences include a
they had the
fine of up to
deputy right by CG,
$50,000,
guys.
a period of incarceration of life imprisonment, which is a requirement of a sentence, that it be a life sentence with a mandatory minimum sentence of at least 10 years on each of those counts. In addition, you would be potentially responsible for a fine of up to $5,000 to each of the victims of your crime to be enforced in the form of a civil judgment to operate as additional punishment. This is in excess of any restitution or fines that the court could order. And again, you may be required to pay restitution to the victims of the crime. You would be required to provide, as to counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression, and potentially pay for analysis of those samples. You would lose any right to possess, purchase, or carry a firearm, the right to serve on jury duty, the right to hold public office, and the right to vote. Do you understand the charges and all those possible consequences?
Yes.
He looks weak and frail, guys.
You've heard the plea agreement that I talked about today. Do you agree with that plea agreement?
Yes.
And do you understand the nature of the charges that you've been charged with that I understand you're going to plead guilty today to?
Yes.
Something's up.
As as I indicated, I'm not bound by the plea agreement, but the plea agreement is for the maximum on each count. Do you understand that I'm not bound by the plea agreement?
Correct.
Yes.
Has anyone promised you that I would be lenient or easy on you if you pled guilty?
No.
Has anyone threatened you or anyone close to you to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Is anyone other than the state's agreements with respect to the plea agreement, has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone told you to be untruthful in answering my questions today?
No.
Has anyone offered you a reward of any kind other than the plea agreement in order to get you to plead guilty today?
No.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
And counsel, obviously there have been a number of motions filed to suppress evidence in this case. Other than those filed, are there any other motions that you felt were available with respect to Rule 12?
No, Your Honor.
And Mr. Kohberger, you understand that by entering the guilty plea in this case, you would be giving up your right to appeal any decision this court made,
This court,
as
not
well as
federal.
your sentence.
Yes.
Something's up, you guys. This is wild. All eyes are on Steve G., the deputy.
Have you had enough time to decide whether or not to plead guilty?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Given your choices, do you believe it's in your best interest to plead guilty?
Yes.
Have you discussed fully the matter of pleading guilty with your attorney, and are you satisfied with the advice you've received?
Yes.
Has your attorney advised you to your satisfaction about what your rights are, what your defenses may be, and what the possible consequences to you of your guilty plea are?
Yes.
Has your attorney done everything you've asked them to do?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with their representation of you?
Yes.
I have received a written guilty plea advisory
How is this even
questionnaire
possible?
that is purported to be filled out by you. Did you fill that document out?
Yes.
Did you understand the questions that you answered in this document?
Yes.
And are the answers that are outlined in this document your answers?
Yes.
Are those answers truthful?
Yes.
Did you sign the document?
Yes.
What is going on?
And this document outlines many of the rights that you have in this case. Should you not plead guilty, did you understand those rights?
Yes.
They include a right to a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to the presumption of innocence. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You have the right to require the state to prove your guilt as to each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to confront your accusers and cross-examine witnesses presented by the state, including by utilizing the subpoena power of the court to accomplish that. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You understand you would have a privilege against self-incrimination and a right to remain silent, meaning you would not be compelled to testify if you did not wish to, had you not pled guilty.
Yes.
You understand you're giving up that privilege and those rights that I've just outlined by pleading guilty.
Yes.
How do you plead guilty?
All right, I want you to understand what the state would have had to have proven at trial had you, to the crimes that you're pleading guilty to, had you
Thompson's
if you did-
shaking,
if you
guys.
didn't plead guilty. Let me find the document. Hang on a second here. All right.
What is going on?
So as to count one burglary, the state would have to have proven that on or about November 13, 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, you unlawfully entered a residence located at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. As to count 2, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died. As to count 3, the state would have had to have proven that on that same date in Latah County, at that same address, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. As to count 4, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. And then as to count 5, also murder in the first degree, that on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing him, from which he died. Do you understand those things the state would have had to have proven?
Jeez.
Yes.
And do you understand that by pleading guilty, the state no longer has to
Prove
prove
that.
those things because you're admitting those things are true?
Yes.
Jeez. Did he do this, guys? What do you think on the TikTok, on the YT? Did he do this?
I want to also make.
I don't believe
for
the judge
record,
believes him.
The defendant has provided with the guilty plea advisory form a document entitled Written Factual Basis that purports to have the defendant's signature dated 1 July 2025. Did you sign that document?
Yesterday.
And did you agree with the written factual basis that is included there?
Yes.
Steve can't sit
And then
still.
let me ask you, did you, on November 13th, 2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
I would ask the
Wow.
state at this time to provide its recitation of its factual basis had this case gone to trial.
Wow.
Thank you, Your
Let's
Honor.
listen to Bill Thompson.
Your Honor, the organization of the recitation is different than what I think the court and the public may be familiar with from the probable cause affidavit and other documents. The state's evidence, as an overview, would show that back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing at his parents' residence or was residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior to the purchase of the knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence would indicate the beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. on approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also, we do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area on those times.
Shit.
In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Lake Tahoe County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop in the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m. On the west side of Moscow, on the Moscow-Pullman Road. This was the traffic stop of Mr. Kohberger's car, which turned out to be a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Kohberger's name, Brian Kohberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was an apartment address in Pullman. We then move to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The state's evidence would show that early morning hours on that day, Mr. Kohberger's phone left his Pullman residence, which is an apartment in kind of the central northwest part of Pullman. That phone was then subsequently turned off at approximately 2:54 a.m. and remained off until approximately 4:48 a.m. on Sunday, the 13th of November. The state's evidence would include a trial, video surveillance of a business
What
on
the
the
heck?
Moscow-Pullman Highway, just across the state line from Moscow. It would show a vehicle matching the description of the defendant's Hyundai Elantra entering Moscow at approximately 3:02 a.m. Compiled surveillance that the investigators put together from businesses and residents then show the defendant's car, the white Elantra, as I've described, circling the 1122 King Road area, that neighborhood, starting around 3:30 or so in the morning. Comes
I've got an
into the
echo.
immediate area of 1122 King Road, which is actually on a dead end, and then leaves several times. And approximately 4:05 that morning, the defense car had entered that area, was leaving, stopped at the intersection of King and Queen Road, did a U-turn, and the state's evidence would show that the defendant's car came back and parked behind and above the 1120. The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked. Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez. The defendant, as he left that room, for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to Madison Mogan's body. And I can jump ahead. That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath, as well as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important to note single source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath. The state's evidence would show that Xana Knodel was still awake at this time. In fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the third floor. It was on the second floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana, and he ended up killing her also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom, and the defendant killed him as well with a large fixed blade knife. Each victim suffered multiple wounds. I will state for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no
What
speculation.
was the motive?
There were two other roommates in the house, and they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with a black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand. And she saw him leave the house
Container?
through the direction of the kitchen where that sliding door is that I mentioned before. At approximately 4:20 that morning, so this would have been 15 minutes or so later,
They couldn't have been
Defendant's car
asleep.
is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. And if the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom would see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner,
Loses
heads north,
control.
and then turns to go south. on
Wasn't it
Melinda, which is
backwards?
one of the only ways to get out of that part of town. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time. So we know that he went through a variety of back roads in very rural, isolated part of Latah County. About 4:48 that morning, defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone activity tracks heading back north towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived. About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrived at approximately 5:30 in the morning. Later that morning, this Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it returned to that area. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. He was there for about 10 minutes and then returned to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up. The defendant's phone then went to the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley, approximately 30 miles south of Moscow and Pullman. And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. In addition to tracing the defendant's activities, as I've just outlined, on the 13th and leading up to the 13th, the state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 13th, 2022, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders. The evidence also will suggest that there were at least attempts by the defendant to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon, where all these transactions had occurred. Later that week, the state's evidence will show that Mr. Kohberger went to what we would call DMV, motor vehicle licensing here in Idaho, in Pullman, to change his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington. That's of note because Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate. The vehicles seen on the surveillance cameras of the defendant's car showed it didn't have a front license plate on it. At the time of the traffic stop by Deputy Duke in August, it was Pennsylvania plate, no front license plate. Mr. Kohberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware of Mr. Kohberger, had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, took trash that had been set out on the street for collection, sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic Laboratory, where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Mogen's body in the bed. Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home to return to Idaho. Upon his return to Idaho, a DNA sample was taken from him, and it matched the DNA found on the knife sheath next to Maddie's body at the crime scene.
Is he covering for someone?
I can tell the court, in public, the weapon itself, the knife, has not yet been recovered. I can tell the court that the defendant's apartment in Pullman was searched, as well as his office. Spartan would be a kind characterization. There was virtually nothing there. Nothing of evidentiary value was found. And of course, we are now talking 6-8 weeks after the time of the killings. In Pennsylvania, the defendant's car was seized, and it was actually pretty much disassembled internally. And it also had been cleaned. There was a bucket of cleaner right beside it. I think we can all look to our own cars, you know, in those compartments in the doors. You can try to keep them clean where you put stuff. There's always some degree of crud in there. They were spotless. The defendant's car had been meticulously cleaned inside. And the state would present to the jury that that was part of the defendant's plan in covering up this. The defendant has studied crime. In fact, he did a detailed paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees, and he had that knowledge and skill. So, Your Honor, at the end, the state
Shit,
submits
I
the
must be
evidence
in
that I've given just quick overview
big
of,
trouble. My car is
and that to
spotless.
present in court would consume weeks, which the state is prepared to do and has been prepared to do, would show that as the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022, excuse me,
Oh, ho, ho.
Mr. Kohberger entered the residence of 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted, and that he then killed intentionally, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice forethought, Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, and Santa Cruz. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, based on the state's proffer and importantly, based upon defendant's explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Kohberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogen, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
When did he have time to do the
Court
cleanup?
will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. Court finds that there is a factual basis for the plea and that finds the defendant believes the plea to be in his best interest. I find that the plea was given freely, voluntarily, and was intelligently made. I accept the plea. I direct that it be entered. I'll continue the matter for sentencing in this case. I think it was mentioned on the call Monday afternoon, the defense wishes to waive a pretrial
Oh, wow.
investigation. Is that accurate?
Yes, Your Honor.
The state also?
Yes, Your Honor, the state does not believe pre-sentence investigation is needed, given the evidence that is available. We want to, though, make sure that all of the victims have the opportunity to make statements to the court at sentencing.
Absolutely. And certainly both the state and the defense may present whatever sentencing memorandum and other documents you wish me to consider. The victims will be given an opportunity to provide the statements that they wish to at sentencing. Do we need more than one full day for sentencing?
I do not believe so, Your Honor. Obviously, we have numerous victims, and we have victims who share unique perspectives on this, and we want to make sure that they all have time to express their feelings to the court. But I believe that if we can start perhaps 8:30 or so in the morning, that we should be able to complete it all in one day.
Defense agree with that in terms of the time frame?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So as it happens, we have some time reserved in this case in July and August. The week of July 22nd is available. I don't know if that's too soon for the parties or the next week, the week of August 4 is available. Any preference?
Your Honor, we're prepared as soon as the court wants to schedule it.
The state, I believe, would be prepared on the 22nd. We've told the victims' families that we're looking at approximately those dates.
All right. So because of the plan to bring in so many jurors to fill out questionnaires, I had ordered that no other trials could take place in this courthouse the week of July 22nd. And so we will use that in terms of the sentencing date because of what I'm sure will be the significant interest of the media and the public and the logistics that will be required to make that happen. Without trials going, it'll be a lot easier to do that. So let's pick that week. Why don't we pick July 23rd with the idea that if for some reason we don't finish, we could continue into the 24th. We'll start at 9 in the morning. Does that give your team enough time, Sandra? 9 in the morning? All right. Any concerns with that date?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, sir.
All right. Any reason why I should not rescind the non-dissemination order at this time?
You're right. I think that given the history of this case, it would be best if that remained in place through sentencing. So we have time to make sure there's the ability to completely answer questions. That would be the state's preference and recommendation.
We'd have no objection for the order to remain in place through
All right,
sentencing.
I will, at this point, the idea to keep it until sentencing, which time it would be
Rescinded.
withdrawn
Yeah.
in order to give the parties the space and time to prepare to meet what I'm sure will be the deluge of media requests. That's at least my preliminary decision at this point. We can always revisit if it seems to be
Wild.
for some reason I should. That said, obviously, I don't think the defendant, a bond was ever set for the defendant. Were it would be revoked. The prior order allowing him to come in civilian clothes is revoked, given his plea and no longer the presumption of innocence. And in fact, now the actual conviction for the crimes. He will continue to be held at the jail pending sentencing. Is there anything else to say?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
I assume that the trial date will be vacated
trial
and those
is-
4 jurors will be released.
The trial will be vacated and I'm
4
sure that the
jurors.
jury commissioner will get word to those that receive their summons that they won't be required to attend. So
Thank you, Your Honor.
that said, again, if you would all please wait for the parties and the victims' families and others to leave the courtroom before you do, I would appreciate it. And with that, we're adjourned.
Wow, you heard it.
All right, please.
Wow. 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 Just dumbfounded all over again, y'all. How in the world is this happening? Is this real life? Let me turn that off. Wow, I am just as shocked as everyone here on this live and everyone on the YT right now. We've got about 400 people on TikTok and 119 in the room here on YouTube. I am just as shocked as all of you. I mean, what is going on? So he still might get the DP and he wasn't offered anything. Did you hear this? I recorded it so that I could play it back and listen to it. I will go live tonight with Birdie. If well, it's tonight's Wednesday. Yeah, he usually doesn't have a special guest. So I will go live tonight with Birdie on the YT. He offered no reason he did this. There was no allocution. All he did was in and guilty, and that was it. And will he still get the death penalty? What is the sentencing for this? What is the agreement? I mean, I'm shocked, and I'm also shocked at the demeanor in the courtroom. I am shocked at what I saw. What bothered you the most about this courtroom setting? For me, it was seeing Steve G sitting right behind Ann Taylor, right behind Brian Kohberger. To me, that's like, get behind me, Steve G. They had him in a cornered in, and with a deputy right in front of him. He was the only one in the courtroom that had a deputy right in front of him watching the whole entire time. The demeanor, and Anne was smiling, guys, when they sat down to start. She was giving kind of a smirk at some of the statements by the judge. This is crazy. This is crazy, wild, and strange. How in the world did Brian pull this off if he can't still get the DP? I don't know. I'm going to research this. I'm going to look at this. I'm going to contact some defense attorneys that I know, and I'm going to ask them specific questions. Like, he just pleaded guilty to all counts. The live hearing, I felt like I was watching a movie too. Very shocking. So now, I mean, I'm just like, Ann Taylor has stood up there, claimed his innocence all along. What happened in this case, especially since they brought in this special prosecutor, Josh Hurwitz? And if you don't know his background, guys, he used to be the U.S. attorney for Idaho, and he has taken down the cartel all over that state. And there is a connection between Arizona and Idaho, guys. She claimed her client's innocence the entire freaking time. Now he stands in front of the judge and says, sorry, I'm guilty, guys. With all the documents and the evidence that we have seen, even in the recent DNA inside that order of memorandum by Judge Hippler, that it could not have been his DNA. How is he guilty? Tell me what we missed in this case, guys. The state, Bill Thompson, did not feel confident to me that they had enough evidence. Not even just right now, a few minutes ago. He was wearing a vest under his shirt. I saw that. His shirt did not fit him like before. His shirt looked very tight. It is shocking. Who is he taking the fall for? Who has he covered up for? Has he covered up for females? Has he covered up for rich kids? Has he taken the fall? Type a 1 in TikTok and in YouTube if you think he just took the blame for someone else. Now, I want to read something that I wrote down that was very interesting to me. It said, Bill Thompson stated, between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., his phone Bill Thompson said he was in the area from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Was he visiting a friend? Was he sleeping over at a girlfriend's house? Was he out doing drugs in the area and passed out? I mean, what was he doing between 10 and 4 a.m.? Was he working? No, I'm not twisting his words over on the YT, Bree. He said his phone was in the area between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., but it was not associated with 1122. That's exactly what he said. I've got the audio. Bree, yeah, go find something better to do, honey. Have a great day. As always, be well. So I just blocked Bree. So here's my question. If Bill Thompson didn't seem too confident in what he just read from a paper, it seemed weak. One person could never have done this. Cool hand Luke Duke on the YT. I agree. I so agree. He did say that. The whole thing. I've got the audio right here. 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. His phone was in that area, but it was not related to 1122. I think they want this case closed, covered up. No room for any mistakes made to have confidential informants leaked. That is what I'm saying. It is wild. It is wild. What's next for Brian Kohberger? What would you guys say? What would you say? 3 years. I think I read last night it was at 3.9 million for this case up into 2023. Who knows how much more money this case has cost? But the judge did say in the state of Idaho. Feds are all over this case, guys. He was being watched. That house was being watched. I don't think we'll ever get to know the truth. Operation Mockingbird, says Gwender Woman over on the YT. You know what? How about Operation Take Back America that was signed? It was signed in 2024. It took effect January 20th, 2025. That was to take out the sea gangs all over the country, take down their pipelines, arrest distributors, large distributors, and it started with the Oregon, Seattle pipeline into Idaho. And when they shut that pipeline down December of 22, not more than 2 weeks after this case happened, this event in Moscow, Idaho, they moved the whole operation of the sea gang with the rugs into Arizona. Then they caught that gang here. Guys, there is a bigger cover up. Huge. It is all public knowledge. If you put the pieces in the puzzle together, it's all in front of us. There were 44 agents on the ground within 9 hours of this event happening in Idaho. Yes, they have a field office and they train in Coeur d'Alene. We all know that, hopefully by now. The feds also recruit from colleges. We know that. If you've ever been to any type of college event or job seminar or some type of employment, colleges put on these fairs, these vendor fairs, and you can go get a booth. I always had seen the FBI there. Always. And they recruited, and you can ask them questions. The local police department also recruits from this college, guys, and Pullman in WSU. They recruit from these colleges big time. What in the hell are we watching in America? I bet people in other countries are thinking, what in the hell is wrong with America today? What is wrong? It didn't seem to me, in my humble opinion, that he felt confident in his guilty plea. I didn't get it. I didn't feel like he was confident. I didn't even feel that Bill Thompson was confident in what he was reading. I didn't even feel confident about the judge and what he was reading from the paper. The only one that smirked and smiled was Ann Taylor. Does she have something up her sleeve? Who is he covering for him? Was there more than one person that did this? In my humble opinion, I believe so. Who is he covering for? Who else was involved? And I've been holding back on this information for some time, and since you're here and since you're live on the YouTube, I might as well share it. Here's a Phoenix fireball. You ready? There is some interest, a bigger play at hand. We all believe this. We all know this. He just pled guilty. I did not believe the way he did not sound confident. I feel he is covering for someone. How in the world did he do this by himself? How did he do this by himself? Who cleaned up the crime scene? Who cleaned up the crime scene? And yes, no matter how much you clean up your car, luminol, trace, they have all kinds of stuff. He knows this. I'm not buying it. They set up a special courtroom today that had windows to bring light in there. They removed tables to make sure that they had enough seating for attorneys. The setup was different, not from what you regularly see. Steve G was in the front row all the way in the corner. They had him cornered. The deputy was watching him the whole time. The judge admitted the leaks right up front, told the public not to send him anything. All that would be turned over to the law enforcement and the sheriff. This blows my mind. Why would Ann smirk? Maybe there's something up the sleeve. I don't know. It's strategy. I don't think this is the last time we've heard this. He even said that. We'll be seeing him again in a few weeks for the sentencing and see what the judge gives him. The judge has the ultimate say if he gets the death penalty. The judge gives the ultimate say of how much time he has to serve. Now, you heard the judge. He said up to 10 years per each individual life. That means 40 years right there, and 10 years for burglary. That means that he could possibly potentially spend up to 50 years. And they didn't mention life without parole today. Did you hear him say anything about life without parole? Did anybody hear that? He didn't mention anything about that. A minimum 50 years. Did anybody hear that? The death penalty is off the table. I didn't hear anything about possibility of parole come out of the judge's mouth. He said the maximum was 50 years. He said the maximum was 50 years. I'll play the audio back. I'll make sure that we're ready for Birdie's Live tonight. We'll bring some of this information to you. I believe AT has something that may exonerate him. We were told that there was information that exonerates him. Even his attorney in Pennsylvania said publicly that they have information. He cannot wait to be exonerated. We go live 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on the YT. I randomly come live here on the TT. We used to go here live a lot. A lot. They got his DNA from a Q-tip. How do you get DNA from a Q-tip, guys? How do you get DNA from a Q-tip? How in the world did they get DNA from a Q-tip? They send it to the lab. What, they test earwax and their skin cells in our ears properly. I mean, that's a possibility. It's called a swab. It's very common. Yes, I agree with that. But I've never heard of anything like this before. This is a first. This is definitely a first for many. Yep, the media has tried this guy, and I bet there was just no way out. The state was going to show his phone was in the area 23 times from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Who was he visiting if he had no association with 1122? Possibly, Cindy, he's looking at 50 years minimum. They didn't mention anything about no possibility of parole. They didn't mention anything today. They didn't. So the order of operation, they said Maddie was first, then Kaylee, then Xana, and then Ethan. That was the order that the judge gave. I heard him say max 50 years, minimum is 10 years for each count and then 10 for burglary. So that's a minimum of 50 years that he's facing. Wow. 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 If this is entirely true that he just pled guilty to doing this, what is all the other audio, all the other documentation of Linda Lane in the court records and the PCA and the individual pleadings? What in the world would make us believe that the Linda Lane was all leaked in a money grab? And will the families have to give back all the money they raised to go to court? Because I know it didn't cost no $80,000 to get to court today from some of those families. No appeals. He did say no state appeals. Yep. No state appeals. The gag order will stay until the sentencing, and then the media and the press. I'm sure they're not going to unseal any of these records. It will be sealed because there will never be a trial with this evidence, so it may stay sealed. Wow. Okay. So there you have it. What's the parallel investigation by the feds? I believe it was the drugs. It was the cartel that infiltrated the Greek life entities. And there's so much more. So much more. Mind-blowing isn't even... Wow. I'm sure many of you are watching me on TikTok thinking, man, this really hit her. It is wild. It is wild, guys. I'm sure this is not the last thing we're going to hear after this sentencing, which comes into play, which the families will be present. Yeah, it's consecutive sentencing, one right after the other. He's got to serve whatever. Wow. This reminds me of the Jodi Arias case. Really reminds me. And I just talked about, if you were on the YT last night, I was watching a show that I've seen before, and I thought, oh my God, this is wild. So it's a movie called Trial by Fire. It's about a guy who is innocent in unaliving his 3 children in a fire, and they find him guilty based on statements from other witnesses, and he spends his life on death row until they come to get him. And the guy who testified that he was guilty actually wrote a letter to the warden and said that I need to recant my story. It's not true. The defense bought me a new car. They sent me to school. They did all this in exchange for my testimony. And then basically they inject him and he dies. And they find evidence before, like 12 days before he's executed, is that the fire was actually set by a simple malfunction in a heater, and the entire room of all 3 girls, and 2 girls and a boy, all 3 of his children died, and they blamed him and they found him guilty. Because of what I was talking last night is blotching an investigation. The first thing they do is they get tunnel vision. They focus on one person. In this case of Brian Kohberger, the feds are the one that gave Moscow Department his name. The feds are the one that broke protocol and gave him his DNA. I don't buy this bullshit, guys. No, I don't have tunnel vision. The second thing in a blotch case is that they bury exculpatory evidence. This was based on a study that I researched. Why investigations go wrong. It's crazy. Bye, NASCAR John. You have a great day. I won't take and tolerate that BS on TikTok. So see ya. Be well. Yeah, so he admitted that he is guilty on all 5 counts. All 5 counts. I'm shocked just as much as all of you on the YT and on the TikTok. I am just as shocked. The delay in the 911 call. What else bothers you about this case? Kohberger just admitted it. It's not a conspiracy. Ronan, okay, thank you. I don't buy it either. None of this makes sense to me. Kohberger is not innocent. He just admitted it. You don't know if he admitted this under duress. I didn't buy his guilty plea. This makes absolutely no sense. He said the cell phone was in the area, but they had no proof that it was in that address. That's exactly what he said. He said the cell phone was in that area, but he had no connect. Guys, Bill Thompson in previous hearings has said he did not stalk these individuals. Bill Thompson himself, I've got the audio, I've got the video, it's on my YT. He said they were not connected to these. So how could Brian Kohberger be connected to this case? It's never been explained. It's never been told to us. How is he connected? How's he connected? This does not make sense. It doesn't matter. It matters. If you are presumed innocent until proven guilty, then why did they not go to trial? Why all of a sudden out of the blue came this plea deal after the judge denied the evidence of other perpetrators? Why was Ann Taylor smiling? I have no idea. No idea. The only way I can think about this is Brian Kohberger is an asset. He's an asset and they are protecting him. And like Will said on our live on the YT, when I asked him, Bertie asked him, do you think he's an agent with the FBI? Will said no. But when I asked Will, do you think that Kohberger's an informant? He hesitated. And it made sense what Will said about Brian Kohberger, his friend. He said he was just along for the ride. And then he told Bertie, I never saw him partake in the drugs. What in the world? Is Brian Kohberger a confidential informant that they are protecting? Is he? We will never know. Sue says, and he'll show up as a senator in 10 years under a different name, a doppelganger, right? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And of course, the special prosecutor that came in a couple months ago, basically is Josh Hurwitz. He's the former U.S. attorney for Idaho, and he took down the cartel in many big cities, many multi-agencies. Just wild. All right, guys, I'm going to get off here. I'm going to go and listen and watch their body language. The officer that was guarding in the corner, Steve G, started wiggling around and expressing some things. He told him to hush. And very interesting. Josh's involvement in this case proves drugs. I agree. So y'all take care. I'll be on with Bertie tonight live on the YT at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you for tuning in. Something doesn't feel right. What do you think? Leave your comments. Be well. Shocking, YT. I just got off of the TT, and I know a lot of you are going to want to see this replay, so I am going to get off here. I'm going to go ahead and get this up for you, and as always, thank you for joining. Even Alex Jones even thinks he's guilty. Ronan, have you seen all the hearings? I've been following this very closely. Very closely. Supposedly they did that with Timothy McVeigh. I am not a conspiracist theory person. I'm a realist. And if I see something that's not real, I'm going to point it out. I'm going to point it out. All right? So what do you think about Steve G's statement this morning that would have been protected the roommates and taken the fallen vet? You know, I don't know. I think they all connect because Judge is the one that let Kopaka's name out of the bag in a court hearing that a lot of people have that audio and video. And Ann Taylor even referenced Kopaka in this. So, you know, there's probably more to the story we will never know. But I'm going to dig because if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. So, as always, thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for watching the stream. You all be well and stay safe on the streets out there, especially in Idaho. Be well.